it felt like almost the first time that anybody was holding these folks who game this system accountable or have any sort of answer in that way. And now I'm not here to say that I'm not here to like put any moral weight on stock trading, but I think there is a visceral core to what was happening. I mean, my family, we almost lost our house. And that's how I started waiting tables, was to help my mom keep her home because of so many people that were engaged in just this reckless behavior in the economy. And so, from the perspective of a kind of a retail trader, I'm interested in, I don't know if you were hearing a little bit about the conversation that I was having with Alexis before, or rather Alexis Goldstein before, but, she kind of raised this question on, okay, yeah, we have this one moment. And the news was like very thrilling to a lot of people to see. Arguably, there may be some things that are happening under, kind of behind the curtain. And so it's not just, Wall Street bets that is driving up the stock price, but perhaps other actors involved too. But, the thing that she brings up is, does this really change how the game
That's what I get for fucking throwing up okay buddy before the segment ends.
What are some of those, like, are there any glimmers or windows that you see
for it's okay buddy, dude? It's okay buddy. It's an okay buddy pose.
Buying stocks, or just anyone else that's at home watching all of this unfold?
For me personally, I think it's a twofold issue. One, you have the old idea that is, you won't get in trouble if you rob from the poor, only if you do from the rich. Okay? And so that's kind of what we saw during the 2008 crisis, right? If you look into the politics of it. The only person who went to prison, I won't say his name, but he got caught and went to prison. He stole from rich people. But the banks and all of those corporations who robbed the American people, they got bailed out. Sure, somebody got fired with a $50 million golden parachute package. All right? Now, not only did the small people
stock guys sounding kind of lefty over here.
One of them was also from equities trading, and that was, hey, if you have a small bank account, if you have $25,000,
sounding like a left-wing Andy, dude.
We at the government know that we've got to protect you. Kind of what we heard from some of the brokerages today. We're gonna stop your ability to trade to mitigate the risk because we want to protect you. I mean, and so, hey, listen, we're gonna stop letting you do that because we know what's best for you. Excuse me, government, you're telling me my $4,000 I can't day trade, but I can still go to the casino and put it all on red, right? Yeah, that's cool. But wait, but I can't do it 4,000. Well, what about the guy who has 5 million? Oh wait, what about the guy who has 5 million of someone else's money who's betting that on? That's cool though, right?
Or shorting a stock for 130%.
Exactly. And then at the end of the day, not only does that happen, but it comes back to other politicians and whatnot, and I don't mean that, like, of course, you're newer to the Congress, but what you have to look at it and say to yourself, okay, these politicians, who are their biggest donors? Hedge funds, banks, billionaires. Who stands to gain the most or lose the most from this? Who writes the laws? So now, as a retail trader, I have to look and say, do I really think that my congressman and my senator, who are funded by these people, are going to write laws to protect me and hurt them?
Yep.
No, they're going to wait for the next news cycle story to happen, and then all of it's going to disappear.
I mean, listen, like, you're totally right. You're totally right. So one of the things that that Alexis was talking about was that, what was happening here with Robinhood and with these trades were that everyday people were starting to be able to identify.
The market isn't working as intended. Is Reddit people need to be punished?
That has traditionally been cordoned off.
Shut up, idiot!
And this is one
dumb
huge
idiot
example of that happening.
There you go.
But we've been seeing this happen across the board in so many other areas, and politics is one of them. So, for example, not just me, but in 2018, there was this slew of freshmen. It was one of the largest freshman classes since Watergate. And one of the things that a lot of these like new members of Congress have in common is that they're some of the only ones that ran on promises to not take any corporate lobbyist money.
Bro, there's fucking literally
whether
people
they were left, whether they were
like her
more
coworkers didn't get punished for trading on information that wasn't publicly available.
There are some people more
nothing happened.
That don't take any lobbyist money.
I mean, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue both had their own insider trading scandals, and they were running for fucking Senate, for fuck's sakes. The SEC didn't do shit.
Because there are these new platforms.
Richard Byrd, too, but...
Like Robinhood allows you to buy a singular stock, or the way that you're able to kind of like get in the game with $5-10 in certain, circumstances. Now, it was a similar exploitation of our political system, where before, if you wanted to have any influence in our political system, you needed to cut a $2,500 check. Who's going to do that? What kind of person has the money to just give $2,500 minimum, if not more, to a politician? I mean, that is just the wealthiest people in society that have the ability to not just give that, but also organize and bundle it into millions of dollars. And so we're kind of seeing these like similar exploitations. And then now as technology advances, it starts to actually democratize some of these systems. And people are starting to figure out all these little ways in which the game is rigged. And when you talk about this, I sit on the Financial Services Committee. I got that assignment when I first got to Congress. This is the committee that has jurisdiction over Wall Street. This is the committee that Mark Zuckerberg came in and the reason he came in under financial services was because he was trying to Facebook was trying to roll out Libra at the time, their own kind of crypto-esque currency. But also we've had Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. We've had the CEOs of Goldman Sachs. We've had Steve Mnuchin at the Treasury come in. And we see these alignments all the time. Financial services used to be known as what is called a money committee. There are also other committees like Ways and Means, which writes our tax code, like Energy and Commerce, which is responsible for healthcare policy, oil and gas policy, etc.
He's chilling.
And they're known as money committees because if you are a member of Congress that gets assigned to one of these committees, you can raise a ton of money off of it. Because lobbyists will want to give you money, because CEOs will want to give you money, because some of the most wealthiest people in the country with vested interest in shaping policy in their direction will give you money. Because if you are assigned to that committee, then you get votes and determination on and markups. You can amend laws, you can sink them, you can vote for them, you can turn them down. And so these are known as money committees. Now, financial services, I will say, in recent years has become a little bit less of a money committee because more non-corporate funded members have been getting on that committee and getting jurisdiction over financial issues, over Wall Street. But first of all, that doesn't mean that presence has gone away entirely. There's still very powerful people that raise a ton of money from lobbyists, but also you have people writing tax code. So these folks, for example, like when we talk about capital gains tax and you talk about these huge corporations or people who make billions of dollars off of these trades, they also get to keep it. They don't, that doesn't circle back in any way in terms of contributions.
I wonder how the stock guy or Alexis Ohanian feels about capital gains tax.
These are...
As a matter of fact, I wonder what Chamath feels about the capital gains tax.
And so when we talk about the path forward, it's like, I'm interested in hearing your perspective as just an everyday person.
I don't know. Maybe the stock guy is on. He's on board with it.
What is your take on shorting stocks, and what is your take on, how beneficial some of these practices are by hedge funds, and what are like some of these modes of accountability that you want to see?
Just to me or Alexa, sorry.
I mean, either or. We'll start with you, and then we can move to Alexis.
I mean, like I said, there's so many fundamental issues that this touches upon. It's not something that can be changed overnight. In my personal opinion, because of how entrenched this money already is, and the way this is, and how difficult it's going to be to take this down. If anything, I'm expecting it just to be harder for the everyday, trader. And I don't want to make everyday traders look out like they're completely without blame. I mean, that's just dumb, right? You take a gamble, you buy an option, you buy a stock and equity. Sure, you're taking a gamble. And I understand that. But I was telling these guys earlier, you go to a casino and play blackjack, you understand the rules, you understand it's a gamble, you understand the house has odds. But imagine if you had a 20 on the blackjack table, the dealer had a 19. And you're like, I win. They go, no, wait a second. They pull out the deck of cards, shuffle through, find a 2, put it down and say, actually, we have a 21. At that point, it's like, okay, I understood the risks I was taking, but now we've moved to a whole nother direction. And the problem is that the government, the regulations that have always been and always are the pit bosses. You know what I mean? They go, yeah, let me check on it. Let me do some regulation. Looks fine to me. Or you know what? You're right. I'm gonna change out the dealer. Do I get my money back? No, but we'll make some changes in the future. And that's what we're sitting at. So will there be changes? I mean, that's up to you. I mean, your constituents, I mean, not your constituents, your fellow congressmen and men and senators, that's up to you. And so I'm really hoping that at this point, it's almost not about the money anymore. It's almost about a message. It's, you know what? I fought the man. I may have lost, but I may have also won. And if this brings enough attention and I don't want to call it a plight because I'm not a martyr, but if this entire debacle brings about a change to where at least it evens the playing field a little bit, or you know what? I wrote this on my Twitter. Basically, I said, you know what? Institutions have been allowed for decades to gamble with trillions of dollars on equities, on commodities, on options, gambling with the American people's livelihoods. And no one blinks an eye. But the second, an everyday Joe gets a sliver of success, the world loses its mind. And we've got to find the boogeyman. We have to blame someone. Let's blame those kids on that Reddit forum called Wall Street Bets because they're ruining the system. Listen, if I need to be the guy that takes the fall, you know what? But my future, my kids' future are better off. Screw it. But they're pointing the finger in the wrong direction.
Yeah, Alexis, what do you think about like all of these folks trying to just blame random kids online? Not just kids, lots of people.
It is. So you asked how I felt about short selling. I have an answer for that doesn't feel appropriate. I will just say it's weak. I've never shorted a stock. Conceptually, right, you're basically betting a company will fail. You will make money when the company's share price goes down. In order to do that, you have to sell shares of the company you don't technically own, which is so already it's a weak way to make it's a bullshit way to make money, in my opinion. As an entrepreneur, as an investor in entrepreneurs, I love seeing people make money because they start a business. That business creates value for them, for their employees, for customers. That to me feels like an honest American way to make money. So yeah, if you ask me, I actually think hedge funds or just even the practice of short selling is it's a bullshit way to make money. But to do it in such an insanely leveraged way where they were able to reach numbers where they were able to short more shares than even existed. And it was exposed by some random, someone named Roaring Kitty on YouTube, who was doing the research. And he shout out. Yeah, shout out. I mean, this guy, all credit to him, right? He saw an opportunity. Now, here's the thing. So he decided to make an investment and buy into GameStop. And other people saw this video and the snowball starts rolling because, he did his work. He made a very smart investment. Hedge funds do this all the time. Hedge fund versus hedge fund is like headline news in business press. It's almost like it's Wall Street porn, right? Hedge fund after hedge fund in these exact same situations. The difference is it was one clever person, Roaring Kitty with a YouTube channel, who shared his work with the world publicly, and other people saw it and said, yeah, actually, I think you're onto something. I agree. And then voted with their dollars and did literally the same thing that these funds do behind closed doors in cigar-filled rooms. They did out in public. And so I think it is that has manifested now into something that I think you're absolutely right is about a statement. And it's not up. I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to folks like you, Congresswoman, to figure out what the plan is going forward. I just know from, you know, technology will keep moving forward. Communities and the sort of energy that folks have tapped into from all the way back in 2008, no one's going to forget tomorrow. No one's going to wake up in a week and be like, well, let's all go back to the way it was. You know, the collective public cannot unsee this. And so I think there's going to be more and more energy to find more decentralized solutions. I mean, you're seeing, and again, I'm not a financial advisor. These are not financial recommendations. You're seeing cryptocurrencies like Dogecoin, which are literally, I mean, it's a meme coin that has no, I mean, really no value. It was made literally as a joke. Surging, I think, in part because there is so much of this energy looking for a way to rally behind something that isn't capable of having the game rigged in the middle of the game, as you pointed out, Stock Guy. And I think there are far too many Americans now who are just far too fed up with how rigged the game has felt, continues to feel, and how, you know, John and Jill America end up having to pick up the tab when things go wrong, and then the sliver that they get to do something that, for instance, a hedge fund does without any repercussions. All this happens.
Yeah, you know, I also think so much about how the internet unlocks this, how there's kind of this connection as well. I remember seeing a while ago, I remember seeing a while ago how there were these studies that show if you put a bunch of gumballs in a jar, right? And you ask people how many gumballs are in that jar, the average person will not get the precise amount. But the more people you ask and the more people kind of guess, the larger that sample size gets, actually the more accurate the guess of the collective group becomes. And I think about that a lot in how this kind of popular public mass participation action, whether it's in organizing politically, economically, culturally, etc., how it's almost like an alternative or a competitor to certain algorithms in a way, like this like mass amounts of people throwing their brains at a problem and almost collectively with millions of people coming together being able to solve these problems in a way that, you know, these hedge fund algorithms try to fulfill a similar function. And the idea that those are competing, the idea that you kind of stack one over the other, you know, I can tell you at least as a legislator and as a policymaker, you know, there's always this idea where you come in and say, regulate, regulate, regulate. And it's not as, you know, that cuts two ways, right? And it's never about what the actual tool is, it's how that tool is being used. And as you mentioned, the Stock Guy, like so often I see this all the time. People come in, just like the language that you were talking about today, under the guise of like, we're looking out for the little guy, etc. But what it actually is that it's lobbyist provided language with lobbyist provided talking points in order to get it through. And they win for a reason. You know, these things, these packages, when they pass, very often when they pass in the short term, there's a whole PR line that makes it almost politically difficult to stand up against in that moment. And then it isn't until people realize 5 years later how there was all of this swindling written into the law that they turn around, they're like, how on earth did this get passed? And so there are so many kind of collections there, but there is a fundamental question. I mean, and again, this is my perspective coming in, but there are fundamental questions that we have to answer in not, you know, just what rules or if you institute rules, but how do you actually shift power back into the hands of everyday people? Because that's ultimately what this is about. This is all about power, and whether you're protecting the power of the House, or whether you're going to use these regulations to be those pit bosses.
I am looking, motherfucker. Stop hugging.
Or whether you're going to use
I will ban you if you hug. No hugging.
You know, even out people's hand.
Yeah. I think one thing we're noticing, and I don't think anybody wants to admit this though, is that the quote unquote powers that be, especially in the financial institutions, they're actually scared right now. Scared for two reasons. One, that they've noticed in 2020 with a bunch of people with money and Robinhood accounts sitting at home with nothing to do, or, not, playing down the situation, but they can collectively get together and change things. Before, you couldn't do anything in the market. What is Jack and Jill who are retired with their 401k and it's handled by some big institution who's handling money? They don't know what their money's doing. They don't know what's happening. And the institutions run wild. They help each other out. They upgrade and downgrade stocks all the time. I mean, let me ask you a question. If Goldman or any of these other large corporations downgrade a stock, is that not considered manipulation? Because their word pushes a stock. So I think that they're scared, and I think that they're pulling all the plugs and punches they can right now to try and cover, to stop this before it spreads, right? It's not, I don't want to use a word as crazy as a revolution, but it's like almost an uprising, right? Like the people, the smaller people realize, wait a second, individually we're nothing, but together we have power. And whether we collectively get together to pump a certain stock, which is not what's happening, I think that's completely just a straw man argument at this point. But I think it's an idea of, hey, we have something. And you know what? Like I said earlier, maybe nothing changes from this, but maybe everything changes from this. And if it does, a bunch of whatever you want to call us, a bunch of randos on the internet, and if you want to blame the ones on Twitch, on Wall Street Bets, if you want to blame them on some forum out there, and those are the guys who took the fall and started the change that got the ball rolling to make it. You never know, the butterfly effect. Sometimes a giant tsunami starts with a single ripple. And if we're that ripple as the retail traders today on this day, like I said, history will be written differently. But at the end of the day, hopefully we stirred up enough. That wasn't our intention, but it came along, and hopefully it gives you guys and the next wave of people to say, hey, this has been brought to our attention. These are my constituents. That guy may put money in my pocket or some people's pockets, but these are the people who put me in office. And I'm going to make life better for them. And so that I hope that that's what comes out of this.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. And I think you're right. It's also raised really key and critical questions also about power. Like, when there are all these accusations kind of coming out saying, oh, these people are trying to manipulate the market. There are people raising very important other questions too. Like how, these hedge funds can go on CNBC and send out a message to millions of people watching? And does that not also influence people's thinking and perception? And when was the last time that you saw a retail investor getting airtime like that? And how are these things that different? Or how is, folks having these, folks having certain advanced knowledge, even if it's milliseconds for an algorithm, how is there any equivalent to that in terms of power? And when there's any disruption or challenging of power, I mean, we say this all the time back home and in here in New York City, is that, when you speak truth to power, power fights back. And so watching how this unfolds, I think, is also going to be really interesting in seeing how everyday people kind of internalize.
I'm still looking at chat. I hate it when you do this weird shit. So embarrassing.
Like you say, process this for the future, and how this may impact things or may not impact things. It's going to be a really, really important question for all of us to answer. So, but thank you guys so much for joining me for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, Congresswoman.
Absolutely.
Time.
Do you have any last parting thoughts for either of you guys? Just want to give you the floor.
For me, I just want to say, just for me, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. It was nice to have a voice. Once again, like I said, I don't speak for every retail trader. I'm just a guy who trades stocks, who talks online. But at the end of the day, like I said, everybody had a risk. But I really hope that change comes out of this. I hope that this whole straw man argument of let's blame the little guy because he's disrupting the system stops. I hope that the real issue comes to light. I hope regulations actually get done, even though I'm obviously fully skeptical based on historical precedents. Regardless of politics, I'm glad that somebody out there is taking, the lead on this, and I appreciate that, bringing light to this. I hope that, like I said, regulations, even though I don't like regulations, I hope something changes, and it's all going to start with you and with this whole situation. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing this on Twitch, bringing on a Twitch streamer too. By the way, welcome to the platform. I saw you do Among Us lately, and it was an honor being here. Thank you so much, and I hope we hear back from you pretty soon. Okay.
Of course. Likewise. Thanks for hopping on, Alexis.
Thank you. Have a great night.
I've been thinking a lot about these stories. I mean, they're deeply personal stories being shared about people, their entire families cramming into, studio apartments, like the aftermath of 08. And,
bro, did this Ohanian dude literally say, like, I'm taking down, I'm leaving my position so that a black person can take my role or something?
But
is that true?
I came of age right before 9/11. I was a freshman in college, and I remember in those years that followed, a lot of us were watching as we were told one thing about expectations of WMDs and led to 2 foreign wars, and our questioning of a really important institution started to begin, because we said, well, hold on, this is really important decisions, and with the benefit of hindsight, we realized all these institutions weren't quite so perfect, and in fact were pretty deeply flawed. And then for so many, in the next few years to come, they might be entering the job market to the recession. And they looked at these institutions, these financial institutions that we all trusted, that our parents trusted, our families trusted. And it was like, well, the
white liberals really,
they were doing.
They just gotta,
they made mistakes.
They gotta,
started to make us even more skeptical.
Gotta dial it back, dude.
And with an economy in ruins, then, many were saddled with student loan debt. And many worked their butts off and were told by well-intentioned family members, society, everyone, look, if you just work really hard, get good grades, go to a good school, you'll have a great job. You'll have a good middle-class life. That was the story. Everyone was told. And they're looking around going, well, hold on, I did it. I did all the things, but there's no job for me. And especially,
he's well-intentioned for sure.
This is more coincidentally, as software and technology continues to, or really started eating the world, those skills started to become really valuable. Other skills, less so. Increased automation, those other skills less valuable. And so like, okay, that was another institution, higher learning, academia, college that was supposed to do this thing. And I did what I was supposed to do, and it's not living up to it. And then with social media, because this is the first generation of digital natives, there is a fluency, because we do understand this, because most of us been lucky enough to have an internet connection since, we were pretty young. And so that part feels normal. The idea of
about to play him off
in love with someone you don't even
with
know,
some music,
making a friendship with someone you've never met in real life, or offline, building community with total strangers on the internet. All these things feel very normal to us as a generation. But the idea of institutions we could trust, it's been rocky. And the last 4 years, we've seen our very governmental institutions let us down in so many ways. We've seen a global pandemic that we know we could have handled so much better. And so I think a big thing underlying this, especially for millennials and just digial natives broadly, is that
I just got to say this. Okay. This stuff is boring. This stuff is kind of boring, but I got to go back to this, okay? By asking to be replaced by a black person, Reddit's Alexis Ohanian boldly shows how to be an ally for racial inclusion. Okay?
Let us down. At a time.
So, like, it's like over-the-top, overcorrective behavior I talk about all the time. But I just got to say, like, you could not have shown nuclear liberal cringe, like, in such a perfect summarization by writing this article title, and this is the guy who wrote it. This is the guy who's teaching you what racial inclusion allyship looks like, bro.
Thank you. Like, and the fact that we can sit here, and with our phones do it while we're in bed, it's a better user experience too.
Yeah,
and so
people today are like,
he is a cool dude though. I'm not talking about this guy, but he seems like a very well-intentioned person.
I'm not calling nobody.
No, you really got to earn that phone call. I gotta remind myself. I gotta call my dad actually.
He's married to Serena Williams, right?
So we had this where institutions really consistently let a generation down at a time when technology, with an amazing user experience, and the community helped us be better and better, right? I learned most of my best dad tricks from strangers on the internet. No offense to my dad, but his one brain, and he did an okay job, but his one brain is nowhere near as good as the collective of millions and millions of dads sharing their experiences, their empathy, their advice. And so it's this perfect storm.
Bro, people keep saying that's Serena Williams' husband. He has a black daughter. Okay. So does fucking Bill de Blasio. What is this? All right. What am I not allowed to make a joke, dude? Okay, then. Y'all were fucking loving it when I was making fun of Bill de Blasio, who was like, as the father of a black son or whatever during the debate. You guys thought that was fucking cringe. Shut up.
And we're already seeing it in alternative assets, whether it's people trading sneakers or
I'm not even saying he's racist. I'm just saying this is like
or
over the top
cryptocurrencies. We're seeing all these new ways to opt in to investing that there's no script for, but it only works in a world where you have so many people who feel disenfranchised with the status quo, and a trust, actually a really great trust in one another, even when one another might be another stranger on the internet. So I've gone over my wife would say I'm monologuing right now, but I really appreciate having me on.
No, of course. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Listen, you can't not be cool and be married to Serena Williams.
Thanks, Alexis.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thank
so
you.
that's automatic cool points, regardless.
Well, I'm moving the camera around. Okay. So, I mean, we've just heard from an expert on not just a former 7-year Wall Street professional, but also someone who translated that experience into Occupy and now into really speaking truth to power in policy and advocacy, Alexis Goldstein. Then we had Alexis Ohanian, founder of Reddit, talking with us just now, along with the stock guy who, runs a Twitch channel and really has been watching this experience unfold, not just for a few days, but frankly for months, if not years now. And I think there's just so many through lines that we're seeing. One,
I work at Melvin Capital, and we will destroy you all tomorrow. We will show you peasants the power of us billionaires.
And experience
that was good.
Since we were kids at this point, where we grew up, and there's an entire generation who has had their trust in government rocked.
Bro, my dad works at Melvin Capital. He told me they're planning big things tomorrow, dude. Yo, don't show up to the stock market tomorrow, bro.
In our media also rocked. And what, that creates so much kindling.
My dad is Melvin.
Volatility. And the question is, what do you do with that lack of trust? And it's not even to say that that lack of trust is, that lack of trust has been earned, right? And Alexis was talking about the lead up to 9/11. Yeah, I mean, there were newspapers that just amplified the case to go to war that was totally bogus. That created lack of trust. I mean, that wasn't the only thing, but that's just an example of something that created a huge erosion in trust.
My dad is Mr. Melvin. He said he's shutting down Reddit tomorrow, bro. You better watch out.
College tuition and student loans just, going through the roof.
That's what he said, dude.
Really
he said he's shutting that fucking Reddit down, dude.
Suspect of institutions, because so many people felt
my dad is Mr. Wall
into taking hundreds and thousands of
the
loans.
fucking street that it's named after, dude. Yeah, you heard of him?
We don't even
exactly fucking own, dude. Get wrecked, nerds.
But frankly, with just
oh yeah, your dad's Mr. Melvin. Well, I'm Mr. Wall, bitch.
That some of the folks that get elected are not being responsive to their constituents as much as they are being responsive to their donors. Like all of this has led
an entire
to all
street
of this bubbling up. And the question is, do you channel that energy into destruction, or do you channel that energy into creativity and construction? And I think these are questions that start to be asked even politically. Like, I think what happened with the Trump administration was people taking all of this lack of trust in institutions, this crisis of faith.
My dad is Bill Microsoft.
So many of the most powerful institutions in our country, and saying we're going to channel this energy into destruction. I'm just going to be straight up. Like, that's my read on the situation. And the Trump administration was all about the energy of destruction. We are going to tear all of it to the ground. And maybe that's cathartic for some people, but it has endangered and stripped the rights.
This was really
so
good.
Many people in this country.
It got a little
working class,
sleeper towards the end, but it was really good overall. Very informative. Especially Alexis was fucking awesome.
Etc.
Like really, really good.
You know, you got really rocked over the last 4 years, and so now I think we have an opportunity to channel this energy.
I don't want to make fun of Alexis Ohanian, dude.
Destruction into construction, and the real questions are: what are we going to build now, and how are we going to reinvent so much of this now? And you know, I think some people, and I think a lot of folks, you know, there's this thrill and this idea.
I feel bad. I think he's well-intentioned, like I said.
Ownership over this situation. Well, if you think that's good, wait until we actually start working for there to be, you know, employees of companies to actually sit on the board of those companies.
They're shutting her down. Mr. Bezos,
what
oh no.
What happens when people who actually work, you know, when fast food workers or representatives of them or actual workers in a company actually get to sit on the board of these companies? What happens if we actually instituted a real deal wealth tax on the 0.0000000 on the absolute wealthiest people? Like, we're talking about the Waltons and the Bezoses of the world.
Bro, I swear to God, I feel like the wealth tax is literally, they're adding like extra zeros after the period every fucking year that we move on. Like at first, not to do that meme, but like Bernie used to say millionaires and billionaires. Then he started saying billionaires only. And then it was like, okay, not all the billionaires, but like some of the billionaires. At some point, they're just like, hey, this is the Jeff Bezos tax. It's only if you are Jeff Bezos will we tax you, and Elon Musk, and then all the other, you know, broke bitches in the form of like 10 billionaires. Well, y'all are good. Yeah, the Bezos heirs.
Going to be a lot that we're going to have to look into.
The fuck's going on, man?
And we are going to take a lot of these questions and move them forward, but we're looking into it. And if I'm not mistaken,
you stop saying billionaires because he wants your support. Yes, dude. That's because I'm a billionaire.
To see hearings and congressional inquiries into a lot of what's happened this week. And you know what? You know.
Oh, I gotta hit that ad, by the way.
It's now 10:30. Thank you for
speaking
your
of which, top of the hour, every hour. It's time for a 6-second ad break.
Extreme technical difficulties at the beginning of this, but that's okay. We're walking through.
Invictus, thank you for the 25 tier 1 gift subs.
Next time, hopefully, I'll be able to play a game. I've been practicing my League a little bit. I dusted it off. I was a little too self-conscious to play League in front of you all without having played in a long, long time. But maybe I will be at a level where I can at least
don't do it, AOC.
But that's okay. See you guys soon. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of
Here's
our
the
guests.
ad, boys.
Hopefully we'll be able to join on with some more. But bye, everyone. Thanks.
I told you that Stephen Cohen would have to drag his feet to Congress either this week. Dude, this was great. This was really, really, really good. Host Hasanabi. Yeah, right. This was really good. It is surprising that AOC can just fucking roll over and you know, do one of these sorts of streams like that. And a little bit of technical difficulties only makes people like myself look a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, bro, holy fuck, the juxtaposition of AOC's grandiose articulation and your brain rot twitch speak is so funny. She said after she came back, no Shamath. Yeah. He bailed, I think, because like there were technical difficulties. League with AOC Pogyu? No, dude. No. Azuni, your ego is showing? Homo and the Robinhood CEO, he's got him squirming. Ooh, let's see what our #1 himbo had to do.
Chris, thank you for...
I had to say to the fucking Robinhood CEO. Man, that was really good.
Having me. This is surreal for me. I've been watching your show a lot, especially through this past year.
Well, I appreciate it. Look, you know my audience. This is not an investment show, and I don't think it needs to be. I don't really care about your capital commitments, your liquidity, and what was going on in the regulatory.
Oh, he's like, yo, you're a fan? God forgive me, but I'm about to gobble your fucking last ghoul over here.
Hey. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that, but I want you to address the obvious. This looks like a...
Look at his face. He went from like, oh, I'm so excited to be on the Chris Cuomo show to like, oh, fuck.
Move by an outfit called Robinhood, which is supposed to be taken from the rich and given to the poor, and doing exactly the opposite. That when the big guys, including one of your main investors in your company, started to lose, you shut down the game to starve the little guy. Fair criticism.
That's not what it is at all. And I know you started this segment... it really resonated with me because you described the story of Robinhood. Robinhood started 5 years ago by pioneering commission-free, no-account minimum mobile investing. And we've been the spokesperson of the individual investor. And our whole goal as an institution is to enable those customers, empower them, and give them access to the markets. Because for the longest time, markets have been only accessible to the wealthy. And so the entire industry adopted our business model in 2019, and in 2020
I just want to say, look at all you fucking Benedict Arnolds, dude. Shot up back to fucking 67K right after AOC went offline. I see you. You understand? Hey, look at me. Look into my fucking eyes. I see you. Oh, I couldn't stand Hassan talking over AOC, so I had to go over there. Hey, you fucking, I see you, motherfucker. I see you. I'll be here. Yeah.
We added...
Look into my third eye, actually. My third eye, my zit. Look into it. Reveals the world's secret.
Millions of new customers. The entire industry added millions of new customers who took advantage of the market rally and became investors for the very first time. So, you know, we had to make a very difficult decision to protect our customers and our firm.
Why?
But we in no way...
why? Explain why you had to do it if it wasn't to protect the guys who had shorted the stocks, which are the big hedge funds. How are you helping the little guy investors?
Well, I know that there's rumors around that, you know, we were directed by market makers or other market participants to do this. And I want to be 100% clear. This decision was not made on the direction of any market maker or other market participants.
So why'd you do it?
Decision. Robinhood, as a brokerage, has lots of financial requirements, SEC requirements. We have to put up money at clearinghouses. The amount of money that we have to put up depends on market volatility, and we're in a historic situation where there's a lot of activity and a lot of buying concentrated in a relatively small number of symbols that are going viral on social media. So we haven't really seen anything like this before. And to prudently manage the risk and the deposit requirements, we had to restrict buying in these 13 stocks. But customers that held them could sell throughout. Thousands of other securities and stocks on our platform were available to freely trade. And our #1 priority, as you mentioned, is to make sure our platform is reliable, stable for our customers. We're serving our customers and giving them the tools.
But that's exactly what's in question now.
We're doing everything in our power to turn it back on as soon as prudent.
But that's the thing, is that the trust is in question, because it seems like the only people who are getting hurt were the big shots. And that if they were benefiting from this, your small investors...
Aren't you glad we saw this earlier, this exact same script on CNBC? Before he went on CNN to say the exact same script?
Now believe that you wouldn't have shut down the game. And just one thing without getting in the weeds here. You don't control the listing venue for GameStop. Now, I used to work in finance, so I know this stuff, but the audience doesn't need to. The New York Stock Exchange does. So if anybody was going to control the listing and shut it down, it should have been them, but it wasn't. It was you. And the reason that they do it is very limited. They do it because they think there's evidence of fraud, or they think that there needs to be a material disclosure by the company that hasn't been made. And that's done to protect the investor. You check none of those boxes here because you don't control the venue. You didn't know about any information that GameStop or any of these other stocks needed to put out. You don't have any reason to believe there's fraud that you've articulated.
Damn.
And you're certainly not protecting these people who've been living the dream of making money, especially at the expense of the big guys. So why should people believe you did this for the right reasons?
God damn.
Well, we have no choice. We have to comply with all financial requirements. And
the SEC hasn't said you had to do this.
Well, lots of brokers have to comply with these financial requirements and have issued restrictions on.
So who restricted you? Who made you do this?
On some of these names, and this is a industry-wide thing. You yourself mentioned that other brokers this week have imposed restrictions, and not speaking for other firms, but for Robinhood in particular, this isn't because there's deals happening with market makers we route to or market participants.
But then why did you allow people to keep selling but not buying? The reason that is so troubling to people is that they were making money buying the stock because they were against the short side. And so by enabling them to sell but not buy, it sounds like you were allowing the hedge funds, and again, one of them owns a piece of you, and they had a big short position, and that looks like a stinky conflict that you didn't come out straight on from the start. Address that.
Well, none of that had anything to do with our decision to do this. Again, this was just looking at regulatory requirements, financial requirements.
Look, the only reasonable example here is if he literally says that they did not have enough cash, and that's why they had to fucking stop for a moment, go out and borrow, because if they have to pay out all these fucking people, they might not be able to do so. And that's why they went and borrowed from other financial institutions in the middle of the day, and then suspiciously said, tomorrow we're gonna get started. You can keep purchasing GME again. But that still doesn't make sense because, yes, they didn't even let people use their own cash and not just fucking margin calls either. Like, you can increase that. But it was unsearchable, right? It was literally unsearchable. Like, you could not purchase GME if you wanted to, even if it was on your own. So, even then, it doesn't make sense. It has to be market manipulation. But then again, I, as well as people who are actually clever and smart and much smarter than me, especially on this sort of stuff, like Alexis Goldstein said on AOC's stream earlier, speculate that it's not just fucking Wall Street bets and retail investors that were driving the stock price. So while an overwhelming amount of Robinhood retail investors actually own stake now, or actually own GME stocks or options, it still doesn't make sense. Like, they're not enough. They're not moving enough. They're not going to be able to move. They're not going to be able to put significant enough money to move the stock price all that much. And I don't believe that they did it on their own. It wasn't just Robinhood. It was all these other people on top of that. It was other institutional traders that were engaging in stock purchases as well outside of Robinhood. And that's the reason why the stock price moved as it did. Because I think people saw an opportunity to fucking, cannibalize a hedge fund, right? So even then, them taking this risk basically and trying to stop further purchases from occurring, it seems silly.
And we 100% will always protect our customers, where the entire business is operating to empower individual investors and has been since its founding. And that's what Robinhood is committed to continue to do. So we don't want to restrict buying in these 13 stocks. We're doing the best we can to re-enable it, as long as it's operationally and prudent from a deposit standpoint.
It is really fucking weird, though, that if you're a regular fucking trader, you're like almost every fucking outlet that you would use to continue buying GME made it so that you couldn't do that at a time when literally everyone else who's in the business and in the industry was able to freely fucking purchase it. So all these guys did was they ended up saying fuck you to the day traders and the retail investors. They said, you're not allowed to fucking do this. Step the fuck aside. We can continue doing it.
So for you, it's about how much money is in the mix and what you can cover yourself?
Well, it's about us complying with the financial and clearinghouse deposits and regulations.
Then you need, you know what you need? I'll give you some free advice. You need somebody who sets those requirements to come out and say that this is why this happened, because otherwise it smells bad, especially for a place called Robinhood, to have Citadel Securities, your largest customer, investing $2.75 billion to bail out one of the biggest losers in the GameStop short. You know, they both deny, you know, you and Citadel say this wasn't concerted action or anything, but it looks terrible. So you need somebody to justify your decision. Do you think you can do that?
There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm not going to speak for what regulators or industry professionals will say, but you can talk to any of the brokers that have made similar restrictions, and I think they'll all tell you the same thing. And this is a highly regulated industry. It's non-negotiable for us to cooperate with the regulators, follow their guidance, and we're in constant communication with them. So we have to be extremely buttoned up here.
I heard you, and I saw you on another channel. They were saying, so is it a liquidity issue? So Robinhood.
Oh, he watched it. Hey, he watched it over here, dude. I like to think that Chris Cuomo was in here. He's a Hosbuff gaming frog. And he was watching us watch the CNBC interview together. In my dreams, I mean. Yeah. He was in here. He was over here. He was like, hey, how you fucking doing over here? Fuck you. This guy, I'm going to have him on my own fucking show over here.
Didn't have the money to control the flow. And you said, no, it's not the issue. We don't have a liquidity issue. Well, if you don't have a liquidity issue, but you say you're stopping the trading because you couldn't meet certain capital requirements, how does that reconcile with itself?
Well, we feel pretty good about the situation, and you know, we did this preemptively, right? We were looking at the deposit requirements, we were looking at the operational requirements. So we did this proactively, and we feel good about being able to re-enable these things. And we definitely want to make sure customers understand when we impose restrictions, when we lift them. Ultimately, brokers.
So it was a preemptive measure and not a requirement.
Have to impose these types of restrictions because the capital requirements can change, and we're in unprecedented times, and the financial system operates in very technical ways with regard to settlement and money movement, and there's no way around that. It's just the reality of our business.
I hear what your rationale is, but again, now we're going to be watching this story because you have political forces I've never seen aligned before who want to make sure that the big guy is not finding a way to get over on the little guy. Because the country, I think, has just about had it with that. So you're caught in the middle, and we'll be watching, and I hope you're acting in good faith and that the trading resumes and the market can settle itself. But Vlad Tenev, thank you for coming in and making the case for Robinhood.
it of course, when you forcibly start selling margin calls to, or when you don't allow people to buy and only sell, there's going to be some panic sellers that come out of that, and that's going to end up dipping the stock price a little bit. Now, it still doesn't matter because, you know, tomorrow is still around the corner, but I guess it's still...
Thank you very much. And absolutely, we want nothing more than to enable investing and access to as many individuals as possible. That's our mission, and it's in the name of the company.
Just got to make sure that something named Robinhood isn't rigging it for the sheriff of Nottingham. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to set it up where the little guy can win, they should be able to play fairly and see that happen.
But of course, little guy's not fucking going to win, dude. I mean, look. There was a tweet about this on Twitter that I saw as well, and I've talked about this a little bit as well before, but like so many fucking congressmen and congresswomen engage with information that is not publicly accessible, okay? Now, they might be literally getting information from corporations, like in the case of David Perdue, okay, who, as you all know, he famously said was false, and he wasn't engaging in insider trading when the company that he has ties to, when one of the executives right before, I think, resigning, literally sent him an email, and he definitely took action on that information. Totally exonerated, though. The point is, these motherfuckers act on information that is not readily accessible to the public. Sometimes they literally keep lying to the public and spread the opposite of the information, like Kelly Loeffler did, that they themselves got from whatever their respective committees are that they're a part of, whether they're a part of the Intelligence Committee or whichever committee they're a part of that's informing them on the damages and the dangers of coronavirus and the economic impact that literally every single person can comprehend. And there is no action from the SEC. There's like a congressional investigation, and, you know, they're totally exonerated. But 5 minutes in to a bunch of fucking Reddit lords high on fucking Adderall and IPAs decide to fuck over a hedge fund because it's a smart exploit that they can take advantage of. And all of a sudden, we have congressional hearings coming up. We got fucking CEOs crying on television for the past 24 hours about how infinite growth is bad. We really need to put a lid on this. Like, what's going on? So many retail traders are making money. This is not good. What about the fundamentals? But just know that their priorities are elsewhere. If you think that, like, those who are supposed to regulate the stock market so it yields the best possible outcomes for everyone, well, you're wrong. That's not what the regulators' jobs is. What is this? 30 seconds from triggering market nuclear bomb? We were approximately 30 seconds of triggering a nuclear bomb that would have blown up the market. Do I have your attention? Yesterday, new call option strike prices were added all the way up to 570. Do I have to go over gamma squeeze again? Really? We've been over this when deep out of the money call options start being gobbled up. The price starts moving up towards being in the money. The call writers have to hedge their risk of having their sold calls exercised, typically by buying stock. This creates upwards pressure on the market. We've been seeing these movements all week. Yes. Yesterday, aftermarket, you probably saw that coordinated effort to drive the price down and spook retail investors into a mass sell-off. It didn't work. Last night, Robinhood sent out a message to users. You could no longer enter into new options. You could exercise them if you had the collateral, money in the account to do so. Very interesting. And the first sign of pants shitting fear. Today, the market opened very strong. It opened so strong that we were looking at self-perpetuating gamma squeeze all the way up, way past 570. At approximately 9:58 a.m., the stock had reached